Yo, this is Dark, and here's a Mythic Plus guide to Motherload. When making these guides, I'm hoping to help people get into Mythic Plus, understand the mechanics, or anyone who just doesn't have an understanding of everything that's going on in the Season 2 dungeons. So when you're in that pug environment, you can be an asset to the party instead of being the reason you fail the keys. And for anyone interested in trying out tanking and understanding the routing, here's a basic route of what I do when I'm just pugging. Like and subscribe if this helped you at all. Alright, so in the first area before the first boss in the Motherload, you're going to deal with these hired assassins who will do toxic blade casts. You can kick this, but this will just poison their blade, so just kick it so you don't have to deal with the extra damage. You have the refreshment vendors, who are going to spray this ice beam at a player and it's going to stun them for 6 seconds if the whole channel goes off, so make sure you're kicking this channel so people aren't stunned in your team. And then you'll have the mech jockeys who are going to attempt to go into a mech, CC those guys, don't let them get into the mech so you don't have an extra bigger mob that you don't need. And then there's these thugs that will uppercut players, and there'll be an AoE circle around the player who's getting uppercutted, so don't stand on that player. And then you have the Mechagon Peacekeepers, which are the giant mechs in this area, and they're going to do tear gas, which is going to shoot 3 big green circles that you don't want to stand in. And then for the tanks, they'll do a charge shield attack that does heavy damage, so make sure you're popping a defensive cooldown when needed, especially if you're pulling multiple of these. Alright, first boss in the dungeon, the coin operated crowd Pummeler. This guy's going to have a static pulse ability, and this is just AoE that will damage everyone at the same time, knocking everyone back. He'll shoot out circles of coins that will drop on the ground. For tanks, you want to make sure you're tanking away from these coins, because later on he'll do coin magnet where he's going to, at 100 energy, try to suck up all these coins, and he'll get stronger the more coins he sucks up. So don't stand by any coins and tank him away. During all that, he'll be dropping these soccer ball bombs that will drop all over the arena. The first time he does this, you want to make sure you hit the boss with all the bombs, and then you want to lust after the first one. You don't lust at the beginning of the fight, you want to lust after you actually hit him with all the bombs, so you can get as much damage out as possible, because he takes more damage for every bomb that hits him. And then he'll have the Shocking Claw ability, where he's going to slam the ground. It's going to just be a giant frontal with like a bunch of blue circles, so just don't stand on top of that where you're kicking the soccer balls into him. So after you dealt with the first boss, in the next area you're going to be dealing with some extractors, some sappers, and some earth shaper dudes. The earth shaper dudes are going to cast rock lance, and this could shoot at any player. This is kickable, so just kick this as much as you can. The sappers, when you kill them, they're going to explode, and when they die, they're also going to do a bunch of AoE bombs that will explode on the ground, so make sure you're not standing on top of their final death explosion and all the bombs that they throw on the ground. And then for the extractors, they're going to puncture into the tank, and that will be a bleed. And then besides that, they will start drilling the ground, and there's going to be brown AoE circles that will spawn on top of all the players, so make sure you're kiting these back towards the first boss area so you have plenty of room instead of going into one of the random packs in this area, because it's really condensed with a bunch of mobs and whatnot. And then moving up a little bit, you're going to be dealing with the Stone Fury dudes, and they'll have 2 kickable casts. They'll have Teutonic Barrier, which you want to kick every time, and then Furious Quake, which is a huge AoE damaging ability, but you can kick both these. Just make sure you rotate your kicks on these guys. And right before the second boss here, you're going to have a mini boss, the Taskmaster guy, and he's going to have a bunch of sapper dudes with him and 1 earth guy. But for him, he'll do overtime, and this is an Enrage Lust ability where he's going to have all his allies around him get 30% haste for like 20 seconds. If you have a, soothe or whatever, you could dispel it. Alright, so for the second boss, Azerokk here, you'll always have 2 ads up during this fight. At the beginning of the fight, you can use these 2 totems over here to CC those ads. But when you pull the boss, you want to pull him away from the ads, and he's going to buff one of those ads. When he buffs it, they can't be CC'd any longer, so tanks, you want to pick them up. And for DPS and healers, if you can't CC the other ad or that CC breaks, they're going to fixate on you and chase you the whole time. So when that happens, just make sure you're CCing that ad who isn't buff. But the priority for damage should be on the ad who is buff, because the boss will do extra damage on his slams if that ad is up later on. And then for the boss himself, he'll have this frontal cone that's a knockback, does a crap ton of damage. Don't stand in the frontal cone. And then he'll also have this circle slam ability that he'll jump in the air and slam on the ground. You don't want to stand on the circle because it's there for the rest of the fight. It's like all cracked rock and whatever underneath the ground when you cast it. So you want to kite him around and just keep placing the circles around the arena and continuously kill the ad that he is buffing, because like I said, that slam that has the circle on the ground will do more damage with the ad who's buffed still alive. So priority, kill that ad who's buffed up, and then burn the boss and CC the other ad who's just like chasing people around. Alright, so after the second boss, you're going to take the little choo-choo train down to the next area. Once you're in that area, there's a couple of important ads you want to handle here. You got the Alchemist who will cast a Polymorph. It will turn players into goo. Make sure you are kicking that. If the cast gets off, you could also dispel it. So especially if it gets on the tank, make sure you're dispelling the tank so the aggro doesn't go all over the place. And then you have the Masterminds in this area, and these guys will do a Mind Lash, which is just a single target beam attack on one player. So healers, just make sure you're focusing that player when they're getting beamed. And then they have Brainstorm, which they'll spawn 3 swirlies, like tornado things that will spin around the area that they are casted at. So make sure when those are casted, you just kind of walk away from them and don't stand in the area that they were spawned at. All right, for the third boss, Reeks of Fluxflame. So in this arena, there's gonna be Azerokk goo that's gonna get sprayed all over the place. You want a tanker where there's, you know, a big opening of space for you guys to work around. After all that goo sprayed, she's always gonna target one DPS player with a, you know, there's gonna be a big AoE circle around that player and an arrow on top of their head. You wanna move towards the goo and kind of put it on the edge of the old goo, because there's gonna be new goo that she shoots on top of that player, and that player just wants to, like, you know, move around the edges of where the old goo was, so you still have some room to work with. And then after all that, she's gonna do a propellant blast to 3 different players, and this is gonna be what helps you clear the arena. And this will, you know, you can aim this into the goo and she'll shoot that player who has it. No one else stands in front of her while she's shooting the one player who has the red arrow above their head. And it will clear the goo that's on the ground, and you can continue the fight. And then from there, it's basically rinse and repeat. And she does have a chemical burn, like dot ability that's dispellable. So healers, just make sure you're dispelling that as much as you can. All right, in the last area here before the final boss, you got a couple of dudes that you have to deal with. You got the War Machine that will do an AoE attack to the group. And then they'll deploy landmines that will chase and fixate a random target. These landmines will basically one-shot you if they catch up to you, so make sure everyone is CCing these mines and killing them before they get to your teammates and kill their asses. And then you got the specialist dudes, and these guys will just call artillery, which is just going to be, you know, like red circles that will spawn on the ground that will, you know, shoot artillery at you, so don't stand on those circles. And then as you're moving through this minefield, make sure you guys are, you know, taking out the mines before you're pulling a lot of packs, because you don't want to have too many mines chasing people. All right, for the final boss here, Razdunk. His first ability is going to be Homing Missile, where he's going to target a random player, and it's going to shoot a missile with a huge AoE red circle around that player. You just want to make sure you're running out your group and taking the hit, you know, as long as you're not in the group, take the hit and come back in, DPS some more. After that, he's got some Gatling gun ability, and he'll spin around in a whole circle before he stops shooting the gun. This does heavy damage. Just make sure you're running around and not getting hit by the gun while he's spraying. And during the fight, there's going to be untargetable ads on the edge of the arena that will shoot missiles all over the arena, indicated by all the red circles around the arena. And it's going to be wherever they are facing is where they're going to shoot. So tanks, make sure you position the boss where there won't be any missile fire. And then when you get the boss to 50%, he'll go into his intermission phase where you can't damage him at all. He's going to spawn a couple ads that are going to fly around. They're just going to shoot random targets. Threat doesn't work on them during this, so make sure you're DPSing those ads. And at the same time, he's going to deploy 3 bombs that you have to blow up with his Drill Smash ability, where he's going to target one player that will have an arrow above their head. That player wants to run to one of these bombs and have the boss smash his own bombs. You do all 3 of these bombs, the boss will come back down. Then you just rinse and repeat and do what you were doing. Just make sure you're burning those ads down so you don't have them up during the normal phase. And that's it for this dungeon, dude. Good job, man. GG.